And in the chapel, he finds a bunch of boxes, and one of the boxes is Count Dracula. He is going to descend the castle as much as he can in the hopes of escaping and getting out. And that is the last we hear of Jonathan Harker. Mina is an assistant schoolmistress. She's Harker's fiance. She's smart, she's driven, she's curious about the world. Her bestie, Lucy. Lucy's very romantic and sensitive and kind. Lucy has been proposed to by 3 different people. Dr. John Seward, he runs the local asylum. Mr. Quincy Morris, the cowboy. Arthur Homewood, he's the son of a lord, the lucky winner of this dating game. Lucy has started sleepwalking. Seward monitoring one patient in particular, Renfield. A ship is drawing closer to port. We'll see what or who is on it. Hello world, welcome back to my Dracula vlog. Today we are covering chapters 7, 8, and 9. Happy Friday! If this is your first time seeing me, hi, my name is Emerald and I'm currently vlogging my way through Dracula. I'm doing 3 chapters at a time. This is my 3rd installment. There's a lot going on, so let's just jump right into it. So chapter 7 starts off with a report that there is a storm that is sweeping through Whitby, the coastal town where 2 of our main characters, Mina and Lucy, are currently located. There's lots of wind, the waves are going wild, there's a really dense and heavy fog. During this storm, there's a mysterious ship that pulls into port, and at the helm is a man that is unfortunately no longer alive. It's the captain, and he has been tied to the wheel of the ship. Spooky. There is also a rosary that is clutched in his hand. Now, once the ship reaches shore, there is this big dog that runs off of it, and that's Dracula. The dog races off into the night, and then subsequently goes missing. And this information is all being included in a news article. The reporter who is writing the article then goes on to include the captain's log, which has been recovered from the ship. According to the log, the crew was very nervous for this voyage. It was sailing from Varna, which is in Bulgaria, has traversed the seas to make its way to this northeastern part of England. And it had quite the journey. The crew was nervous about something. They're very on edge, and after one of the crew members goes missing, completely without a trace, their fears are only enhanced. Another crew member reports that he saw an unfamiliar man aboard the ship. So the captain and the crew search the ship top to bottom, except for all of the boxes that they happen to be carrying. And of course they find nothing. And my question is, why are you not checking inside the boxes? If you think you have a stowaway, why wouldn't the stowaway try to hide in one of the boxes? The captain doesn't really seem to take these claims too seriously. I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, back in those days, it was probably super easy to just sneak on a ship. And especially already one of your crew members has gone missing. And this oversight is gonna nip them in the bud big time. After a week of peace, another crew member goes missing. And then over the next week, more people just disappear in the middle of the night. One night, 2 people go missing. The captain also reports that the fog seems to be following them. Fog is one of the forms that Dracula takes. One of the mates claims that he also saw an unfamiliar man aboard, and in fact, he tried to stab him. So good on him for trying to take some action. And now this same mate is finally going to check in the boxes. Weeks after this all started, like it's about freaking time. The captain thinks he's crazy. Like, at least this guy has solutions. You're the captain of the ship and all your crew is gone. Something's gotta be fixed, buddy. Later, the captain writes in his log, quote, "I heard him knocking away at something in the hold, and work is good for him. Bro, he's fighting for his life down there." He reported seeing a man. Everyone has mysteriously vanished, and now I hear fighting, but this is all fine. This is one of those situations where the book comes off as farcical to me. Like, I don't know. Like, did Stoker intend for this to be funny? Because it's just so ridiculous. It's funny. The mate then runs up back on board, terrified, of course, begging for safety, and then ultimately jumps overboard, deciding that the watery seas are how he would prefer to go rather than going up against this creature of the night. After witnessing his first mate screaming in terror, has gone through something so horrific that he would rather jump overboard than face it. The captain assumes that he is the one that has taken out all of the other sailors, and he was the true villain all along. He may be worse than Harker. I just don't know how you don't even check, like double check to make sure that there is nothing, no one down hiding out in your ship. Also, why are they even still sailing? Why haven't they like turned the boat around weeks ago? After 2 people went missing, I'd be like, let's go. But like I said before, choices were made and they weren't the right ones. And now these choices have consequences. And the following night, the captain writes in his log that he too has seen the mysterious figure. But as the captain, he refuses to abandon ship. So at least he's got some loyalty and bravery in him. And so this is the point where he ties himself up to the wheel to ensure that no matter what, he's gonna still captain his boat. He grips tight to a rosary to have something that will repel Dracula. He puts his final log entry into a bottle for protection. And that is the end of the log. We know what happens next. And this is all reported in the same article. And everyone in town just thinks it's a weird tale, I guess. You don't really read about any reaction to the mysterious figure or how everybody went missing. I guess ain't nobody got time for an investigation. I think everyone just kind of assumes that they went mad on board. They do mourn the captain and consider him a hero, so there's that. R.I.P. to all the other guys. And I mean, I do feel bad for the captain, but I feel even worse for all his crew members, like who he was in charge of taking care of, that died simply because of his ignorance. I mean, who knows what if they had opened those boxes right away and found Dracula as a stowaway, could have just tossed him overboard. I mean, Dracula's like immortal, so he probably would have figured out some way to come back out, but maybe by the time he swam up or something, the ship would have been gone. Who knows? And then especially his mate went down there. Maybe they both could have taken on Dracula, at least stood a chance. Just another sad and tragic turn of events in this novel. But the funniest part of this whole situation is the fact that after this eerie, mysterious, tragic account, the reporter is like, most of all, we miss that dog. That's the dog that ran off the ship. Apparently, everyone in town is looking for it, and the town is, quote, in mourning for the dog. 10 people mysteriously died with the dog. The dog is what we're all focusing on. It's like when people watch movies and like a bunch of humans will die, but the dog will survive, and everyone's like, well, that's okay then. Which, like, fair. And the town also wants to adopt the dog. To be fair, probably be my downfall if I was in the novel. Creepy man, obviously. Big nope. Creepy bat, bigger nope. But a doggy, it would be pretty hard not to pet the doggy. Also the fact that there was never even a dog mentioned in the log. Not once. They talked about all the men on board. They talked about only having the boxes on board. And they talked about searching the entire ship. You would think that even if they thought, oh, well, the dog must have just snuck on somehow, you don't think that they would have mentioned like, oh, well, maybe the weird noises or things we were hearing was just the dog we found on this ship. Nope. Nope. No. 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 Nobody finds this strange. Anyone? Anyone? No? You just want to pet the pupper? It reminds me of Parks and Rec. Like, this would be something like if Dracula came to Pawnee, was wandering around as a dog, and everyone was like, oh, we're trying to find the dog. We want to pet the dog. And Leslie would be the one who's like, guys, maybe we shouldn't go near the mysterious, potentially rabid animal. And also, hey, should we maybe investigate all those deaths? And the townspeople would be like, oh, so what? Nope, you're saying you hate dogs? Oh, but enough of this incompetence. Back to Mina. Lucy is continuing in her sleepwalking, and Mina is waking up multiple times a night to take care of her and make sure she gets back into bed because she is such a fantastic and wonderful friend. The night that the ship comes in, the dog runs off. Unfortunately, one of the men that Mina likes to chat with is found passed away. He was sitting out at night, and it appears that he fell over with a look of fright on his face. And that is the sad end of chapter 7. Chapter 8 begins with Mina journaling about how her and Lucy are coping in the aftermath of all these tragic events, just continuing to live and lunch and whatever, like ladies did back then. I did find this part interesting because Mina writes a bit about the idea of the new woman of this time who was finding new independence, careers, different dress, and things like that, trying to break the traditional mold, so to speak. And she actually kind of talks about the new woman with a hint of sarcasm. Like, she doesn't really buy into it all that much, which is ironic because she's a new woman. She's very independent. She has her own mind, and she's driven and kind of takes initiative a lot. And again, these are things that will come up more in the novel. And she also has her own career. So, I mean, nobody's perfect. And it seems like Mina's flaw is a little bit of lack of self-awareness. One thing I did find a bit amusing was this quote where she says, "New women writers will someday start an idea that men and women should be allowed to see each other asleep before proposing or accepting." Could you imagine? Scandalous. Later on, Mina wakes up in the middle of the night and finds that Lucy is gone. She has actually slept walked out of her house. So Mina runs out into the night after her to try and save her. Obviously, this is very concerning because out there she could get hurt, she could wander anywhere, and where somebody could find her. This is very important for Mina to find her as fast as possible. Mina spots Lucy up on the cliff where they usually like to sit, and there seems to be something behind her. By the time she gets up there, it's only Lucy and she's asleep. But we know what was going on. Mina wakes her up, she puts a shawl around her, and she hurries her home. Now, because Mina just dashed out into the night as fast as she could with her mind only on her friend, she didn't bother putting any shoes on, so she's walking around this town on the gravel and cliffs barefoot. She seems to be more concerned about perception than the pain. And just one thing that I wanted to point out, because again, I find funny. She writes, "I daubed my feet with mud, using each foot in turn on the other, so that as we went home, no one, in case we should meet anyone, should notice my bare feet." Like, girl, do your shoes look like mud? Like, if I saw two women walking around in the middle of the night, I would be more freaked out if one of them had mud shoes than bare feet, but that's just me. You gotta do what you gotta do. While it was a great thing that Mina tried to keep Lucy warm and put the shawl around her, unfortunately, it potentially a mistake, because later on in the daytime, she notices that Lucy has 2 pinprick marks on her neck, and Mina just assumes that it was where she might have accidentally pricked her when she was pinning the shawl to her. Oh man. A couple nights later, Mina wakes up again, and this time Lucy is sitting up in bed pointing at the window. Mina goes to the window and finds a bat there, but upon seeing Mina, it flies away. Personal anecdote. So last night it was thunder and lightning and raining out, which I live in LA, so that is very rare, especially this time of year. It was very exciting. Oh my god, it was so perfect for reading Dracula. I was curled up by the window, and I left my window open. Not like open because, again, I'm not incompetent and stupid, but just like the pane open with still the screen up. And I woke up, and then in the middle of the night, it was like 4 a.m. The wind was so intense that my blinds were going crazy and I didn't want anything to fall over my desk or in the region, so I had to close the window, and I was like, I am making sure that this is not just closed, this is locked up tight, because we don't mess around. I don't know if you can see, but I got a bat there that I keep by my bed. So any bats that come can deal with that bat. Deal with all 4 foot 11 inches of whoop ass up in here. Anyway, a couple days later, Mina and Lucy are taking a walk. They're coming home from dinner, and the sun is setting, and Lucy makes a comment. His red eyes again, they are just the same. And Mina is creeped out. Even scarier, she follows Lucy's gaze and sees, quote, a dark figure seated alone that has great eyes like burning flames. But then she blinks and it's gone. Woo-hoo. Later on that night, Mina takes a walk on her own, and when she comes home, she sees Lucy sleeping by the window, and then she rushes up to the bedroom, and Lucy is making her way back into bed, but now holding her throat. Now Mina is just so unnerved because something weird is going on, but all these moments are just so sort of innocuous. There's really not much she can do, and she doesn't know what exactly is going on. And it's such a hard situation for her. Mina's really going through it. It's now the middle of August. Harker's final journal entry was on June 30th. The letter she received from his colleague, she got July 26th, though now it's been a couple weeks later and she hasn't heard anything else. Lucy's getting more tired, fatigued, and just looking very weak and pale. She's also struggling to breathe, all obviously because she's losing blood every night. And she keeps finding her by the window, so she thinks that maybe she's just like catching cold or an illness from sitting by the window. And whenever she tries to ask Lucy about it, Lucy can't remember what's going on. Even stranger, the 2 pinpricks are not healing. The good thing about Mina is that she's taking all this very seriously. Like, she knows that something's up. Unfortunately, there's just nothing that she can do about it. We take a break from that just to see some receipts to show that Dracula's boxes have made it to his new house. When we pick up with Mina a few days later, Lucy seems to be doing better. I guess maybe Dracula took a break from his midnight snacking to make sure that his new house was set up. Lucy also describes to Mina a dream that she has. She mentions, quote, something long and dark with red eyes. She also mentions drowning men, her soul seeming to go out of her body, and an agonizing feeling. And then she starts to laugh. Because for her, this is all just like, I guess, a silly dream. But Mina's like, oh, what the girl, that sounds creepy. Things take another turn. It is now the 19th of August, and Mina finally gets news on the fate of her dear fiance, Jonathan Harker. And he's alive. Are you surprised? Because I was surprised the first time I read this. His little escapade sneaking down the side of the castle was successful, and he got away, which I feel like this almost makes Dracula seem less powerful. If it's so creepy and supernatural of Dracula to be able to climb down the castle, then how was Harker able to do it? Like, it couldn't have been that impressive. For the last several weeks, Harker has been in Budapest. He has been in a hospital being taken care of by some nuns, basically for madness. 1, he's traumatized by everything he saw, and then 2, trying to explain what he's gone through. Everybody who's come in contact with him has probably thought that he's mad. So Mina is now going to travel to go take care of him, bring him clothes and money. And one thing about Jonathan Harker is that, as silly as he could be, the man does have a good heart, and I think that's why I don't hate his character. I can appreciate a good person. He does seem to genuinely be a good person. I guess because the hospital is run by nuns, they don't need money, but he insists on paying once Mina gets there and gives him money because, like, he knows that there are people out there who can't pay, and he just doesn't have the money on him because escape. And then the nuns who write to Mina do talk about how he's very sweet and gentle and everybody loves him there. Oh, dear Harky. And Mina, as you can imagine, is just so overjoyed to hear about him, to hear that he's alive and that he's being taken care of, and she's gonna go right away. We end this chapter by going back to Dr. Seward, who again is studying Renfield. The patient has had a bit of a change in personality. He's gotten somewhat of like a god complex. And then, as I do, I'm going to point out something funny. Renfield has become very condescending to the workers at the sanatorium. He says to one of them, "I don't want to talk to you. You don't count now." Which I think is just such a funny way, like, to say that not just, I don't want to talk to you, but your entire existence does not count. And then that night, Renfield actually escapes. He is on the run. Now, where does he run off to? Well, he goes next door to this mysterious old house that has been vacant and deserted, but has recently come under new ownership and has a new tenant. Can you guess who the tenant is? Seward and his colleagues find Renfield by a chapel door. Does every mansion have a chapel in these times? Because It's just weird that it's happened twice. And he's talking to somebody and referring to his master. They managed to capture him and put him in a straitjacket and restrain him in the room. This is maybe one of the best endings. Chapter ends with Renfield saying, "I shall be patient, master. It is coming, coming, coming." Ooh. Before we get into our final chapter of the day, I just want to pause and go off this, because this book really doesn't work without so many coincidences. There's a lot of convenience that makes this book work, and I mean, it works, it's fun, I don't mind it. I just think it's funny and it's something that I want to point out, because what are the chances? Now, first of all, the house that Dracula has purchased, he buys it because it's next to the sanatorium and he knows that Renfield was there. The doctor who is in charge of Renfield happens to be friends with Arthur Homewood, who is Lucy's fiance. The doctor also proposes to Lucy. So, double the connection there to Lucy with Senra, who happens to be best friends with Mina, who happens to be the fiance of the solicitor who has set this all up. It just works out so well. I don't know. I guess Stoker was like, well, I gotta get these characters all to work together somehow. I'm not gonna think too hard about how to make it happen. Anyway, now we're in chapter 9, and Mina is writing a letter to Lucy, updating her on her travels to and in Budapest. She's gotten to the hospital, she's met the nuns, she's seen Harker, and describes him basically being a hot mess, but very lovingly. Harker claims that he doesn't remember what happened in the castle. He doesn't know what set off his madness. The nuns tell Mina that he was raving about wild things, but they won't go into specifics because they don't want to scare her. They just assure her that it had nothing to do with her and that he's fine now. Harker knows that whatever he experienced, real or not, it was probably written about in the journal, and he does not want to read it. He does not want to relive it. He doesn't want to know what set him off. He just wants to live ignorance is bliss type situation. And he makes Mina promise to keep his diary from him. They also want to get married as soon as possible, and they do. Harker is still bedridden and it's in the hospital, but they're still both overjoyed. Mina's wedding present to Harker is I guess they're both Harker now, is to seal the journal with both a ribbon and wax, and she presents this to Jonathan as a symbol of trust between them. If he doesn't want to know what's in there, she's not going to know what's in there. She trusts that he didn't do anything wrong. Both just going to move on, go on with their lives, and get back to normal, and live in bliss as newlyweds. And they will never have to worry about any of the horrific things that have occurred over the last few months ever again. Mina's very, very happy, and Lucy writes back also very happy. She's back in London and spending time with Arthur, fiance. They plan to be married at the end of September. Seward, meanwhile, is continuing to monitor Renfield, who is very violent during the day, but then more calm at night, which is interesting. After observing this, Seward decides to unleash him from his, how he's been chained up during the day, and then Renfield escapes again. And this time he actually tries to attack Seward. While they're out, Seward follows his eyes and sees that Renfield is focused on a bat in the sky. So Dracula's just flittering all about. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm dumb. I guess maybe Dracula took a break from his midnight snacking to make sure that his new house was set up. That's why Lucy was getting better, because he went to London, because that's where the sanatorium and the new estate are. I'm silly. Flattery for me. Now back in London, Lucy is getting weaker again. How he found her, he's got vampire GPS on her. I don't know. She also writes that she's hearing scratching at her window. She can hear it, and then she doesn't remember anything that comes after, so she just assumes that she's going back to sleep, which, fair. Unfortunate, but fair. Arthur, of course, notices Lucy getting weaker and looking sicker, so he asks Seward to come and take a look at her, but advises that he needs to do it discreetly. Another really sad thing that's going on is Lucy's mom is actually dying. She has gotten news from her doctor, her own doctor, that she only has a few weeks left to live. She's told Mina and she's told Arthur, but she's asked them both not to tell Lucy, which I don't think is really right. I don't know why you would want something like this to be a surprise to your daughter or child. She doesn't want to worry Lucy, especially because Lucy's own health is in jeopardy. Still, I would want to be prepared for this if possible. And on top of this, Arthur's father is sick. Arthur is called to see him right away. Seward visits the West End mansion. He has lunch with Lucy and her mom and acts like he's just checking up on the both of them since Arthur is out of town. He notices right away that Lucy is not doing well. She is withering away and pale and sickly. She's in very good spirits, very cheerful and happy, and doesn't seem like anything is wrong in that sense. It's not until they are both alone in her room that she drops the facade and she just admits that she is very tired and worn down and not feeling well at all. For her mom's sake, she has been putting on an act for everybody else. And as sick as she looks, Seward can't diagnose her because she's not really sick. You know, she doesn't really have an illness. It's apparent to him that she's suffered blood loss, but she has no injuries. It's this medical mystery to him. I don't quite understand how they did this. He examines her blood and it's fine and healthy. And I'm not quite sure how you examine blood, especially during this time period. I don't know what that means to them. I was kind of waiting for him to be like, and then I gave her some cocaine to try and get her energy back up. Oh, 1800s medicine. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he reports back to Arthur and then says that he has decided to call in an old mentor of his who is kind of a master at diagnosing and figuring out obscure diseases and illnesses. This old pal is just all around great guy, very intelligent, good person, great mentor, and it is the one, the only Van Helsing. Finally getting Van Helsing up in here. Aside from Dracula, maybe the most famous character from this book, which is kind of funny because if you're expecting crossbow wielding, Hugh Jackman looking, grizzled, ready to fight a bunch of monsters, Van Helsing, you're not gonna get him here. He's kind of a quirky and kindly old professor that has these interesting sayings, and I mean, he's a tough guy, but he's older and more academic prowess than physical prowess. I mean, I've really enjoyed this character. I'm not trying to talk him down, but I just think it's funny that he's developed into this fighter when he's not. Also, his first name is Abraham. You know who else's first name is Abraham? Ooh, I'm gonna write about this cool and very knowledgeable expert vampire hunter, and what should I name this character? My name. It kind of reminds me of how Jane Austen in Pride and Prejudice wrote about Jane Bennet, who is beloved by everybody, supposed to be so beautiful, the #1 bachelorette in town, and her name is Jane. But to be fair to Austen, I feel like Jane is more of a common name, especially for that time period, in that context, than Abraham. If it's the second most popular name, it only makes sense that if you're writing 7 novels, someone's going to be named Jane. And then also, in Emma, you have Jane Fairfax, who is not described well by the main character. This is a tangent. We're not about Jane Austen. Back to Van Helsing. So Van Helsing happens to be on his way to visit London when Seward writes to him. More coincidences. He comes in and he examines Lucy. Van Helsing doesn't give a diagnosis. As you can probably imagine, he's, like I said, a pretty smart guy, so he's not going to right away be like, vampires, demons in the blood. But he does impart to Seward that this could be a matter of life and death. But that's pretty much all he says. In Seward's opinion, though, this is good because he can tell that Van Helsing is thinking and ruminating, and the cogs in his brain are turning. He's confident that he'll be able to figure things out. Van Helsing comes back and reads Seward to absolute filth to get him out of the room. What's he know about young women? He's got no wife. He's got no family. It's all in just a joking way to get Seward out of the room so Van Helsing can talk to Lucy one-on-one, get more of a feel for what's going on. Later, he touches base with Seward and confirms that Lucy is not exhibiting any symptoms of illness or anything diagnosable. Also says that she has had blood loss, but she's not anemic, and he's going to try to help as best he can. At this point, he's probably suspicious, has an idea of vampire related, and he also really likes Lucy. He's been charmed by her. They've gotten along very well, and so to him, it's very important to figure all this out for her own sake, not just tell about Seward or for the science of figuring it out. And Van Helsing then returns to Amsterdam, but he wants to be kept in the loop. Seward goes back to studying Renfield, who's kind of sort of acting back to normal. I mean, as normal as he is. He even says that his master has left him, but Seward does observe in action, freaking out during sunset, and once the sun is down, he is perfectly like calm. So Seward is just confused, and he's like, can the sun or moon affect a person's behavior? He's just at a loss across the board with all his various patients. We then see a series of telegrams from Seward to Van Helsing, keeping him up to date with Lucy's condition, and it literally goes from September 4th, doing well, September 5th, greatly improved, color coming back, everything's going fine, to September 6th, terrible change for the worse, come at once. And that's where we leave things today. We'll see what's troubling Lucy when we pick back up Monday with chapters 10, 11, and 12. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Bye!